Stefan, the BMW DIY guy. My project today is going to be really simple, and it actually is part of a bigger project that I'm working on. But what I wanted to do was break out the oil change on my BMW F32 435. Now, this is something you can definitely do at home with only a few simple tools and the right setup. So I wanted to break that work out so if you have any questions on how to change your oil, you can refer to this video how to do it. So there's a few things that I'm going to show along the way that are a little, that are not in scale and scope of your oil change. So don't worry if you see the car with, the engine cover off or a wheel off or anything crazy like that, because I'm doing this as part of something else, right? So let's get out to the car, let's get the oil change started, and it's really simple and something you can do at home. Now, the one thing I really want to stress is make sure to properly dispose of your used oil. Don't get it all over the place because it makes a mess, but then don't go out and just pour it outside in the dirt somewhere or something like that, right? Make sure to use or take it to a proper recycling facility and get rid of it properly. All right, so with that, let's go get started. All right, guys, so we're out here in the garage. Now, before you think to yourself, I've got to take my wheel and my bumper off to change my oil? No. What I'm going to do today is an oil change as part of a greater effort to change out my oil intercooler, which you can actually see in the picture right now, right in front of the passenger side front wheel. But I wanted to start here to talk about jacking your car up first. So please, you don't need to take your wheel off or take your bumper off or anything else like that. An oil change is really simple. This is just part of the effort of what I'm doing today. So ignore some of the extra things I've done. All right, so first of all, jack your car up. You can see my car is up on the quick jacks. You can get away with jacking up just the front end if you've just got jacks. And I just want to, as always, I want to emphasize, do not trust your life to a automotive jack. Don't do it. So you jack your car up, make sure you have jack stands and you get them under your lift points. As you can see, the front lift point from the quick jack right there. So make sure that you get jack stands underneath. Don't count on a little hydraulic arm and your life as you're underneath your car, all right? So get your car jacked up and we're gonna get to the next step. Now, also to emphasize the things you don't have to do, you don't have to remove your engine cover. I've taken mine off because I'm gonna be doing some other work. So to go ahead and take off your cap, because this is gonna help to make sure that the system vents once we pull the oil plug underneath. So just set that aside someplace safe where it's not gonna fall down, and then we're gonna get underneath the car next. All right, so here we are underneath the car. As you can see, I've opened the little door on my belly pan, and it's going to be kind of upside down as I roll underneath here. But as you can see, let me get the door out of the way. Right there, there's my drain plug right there. That is a 17 millimeter drain plug. I'm going to get my socket on that and open it up with a bucket underneath. I've got gloves on, so I can hold on to the bolt and pull it out and let all the oil drain out. So that's gonna be the next step. I'll probably mention this a couple of times, but make sure to dispose of your used oil properly. I'm actually gonna put it into a bucket for now, and then I'm gonna put it back into my new oil containers once I put the new oil in, and then I will take it to a proper recycling center. But there's the plug right there. So take that off. Now, the other thing is there's also a crush washer on. So when you take your plug off, make sure that the crush washer didn't get stuck to the body of the car as well, which sometimes can happen. So look for the little crush washer, take it off if it didn't come off with the bolt. You don't want two in that two when you put the new one in, which can cause leaks. So we're gonna pull that next, drain the oil, and then we're gonna continue on. I'll show you the oil filter and everything else. All right, so oil's still draining out the bottom, but there's no reason why we can't do the top here. Now, what I picked up was one of these cool little cover sockets, essentially. It goes right over the top of this cover. Now, the other thing you're gonna see me do in this process is I'm actually going to be replacing this with the billeted aluminum version from CTS Turbo. So I'm gonna be taking that off. Now, the process that we're gonna go through is essentially the same, but you're gonna see me change this as well. So ironically enough, I just bought this and I'm gonna use it once. So you can see it just fits on right over the top, fits on nicely, turns off the regular direction, and we can just work this right off. Now, when we put this all back on, because mine is gonna be a little bit different, you'll see me put a different one on, but we'll talk to putting this factory one back on as well. I decided to change mine simply because I've heard that these plastic ones can crack, and I don't want to deal with that. So I've still got a fair amount of oil in here, but I'm going to take this off. You can see the filter's going to come off. So I'm going to do that next, and I'm going to walk you through all the steps that I went through. Because the other process that I'm going to do, and I'm going to speak to this because I'm putting the CTS Turbo cover, or that billeted aluminum cap on, I'm going to take this centerpiece out. Now, if you have the factory one, clean this up a little bit. You're going to pull out this gasket, and I'm going to show this, but you pull out this gasket. There's a new one in with your oil filter. There's also a rubber gasket right here, so I'm going to get my pick tool. I'll show you both of those, and then we're going to put the new one in. Okay, so I've got my oil filter housing off here, the plastic one. As you can see, I've already got this centerpiece out, which I'll speak to in just a second. If you're doing a standard oil change, you do not take the centerpiece out. Okay, I just want to emphasize that really, really quickly. I've taken it out because I'm going to put the CTS Turbo billeted aluminum oil filter housing on, and I'll speak to the differences there in a moment. Okay, so when you have this off, you've got two gaskets on this. You've got a gasket around the outside, and in your oil filter box, you should have a little baggie with two gaskets and a crush washer. So here's your new gasket, and here is your new gasket. So what you do is you take your pick tool, just pick off this O-ring, pull it off, put the new one on right in its right place. You can take a little bit of oil and rub a little bit of oil around the outside of the gasket to make sure it's lubricated. The centerpiece, which will be here in the center, has this little green gasket on. Do the same thing. Use your pick tool, pick it off, put the new one in its place. And then pull your oil filter out, just simply pull it out, put the new one in its place, and then screw this on hand tight back into place. Now, I'm going to add an extra step, so if you're watching this just for an oil change, you don't need to do the next steps. This is because I'm going to change my oil filter housing. All right, so let me set this aside. So now I've got my oil filter housing, which I've decided to replace. It wasn't an expensive change. I've heard some horror stories of these plastic oil filter housings cracking over time or getting heat from heat wear. Okay, so this centerpiece is just pressure fitted into place on the old one. Now, what you want to do is when you hold the old one, very carefully pry sideways and gently pull out the center section, because there's an O-ring and a spring, little pressure spring with a little cover here in the center. You don't want to lose any of that or drop it down into your motor. You could always do it away from your motor as well. Okay, so take that. I've already put my new housing gasket in place. I'm going to put a little bit of oil around it. I've already replaced the gasket here at the top. So then this piece just simply carefully pressure fits into the center of your new housing. So I'm just going to work it to get it into place. All right. What I'm doing is I'm lining it up vertically so I can make sure that that spring doesn't fall out, right? The last thing I want to do is lose that spring. And it is definitely giving me a little bit of a hard time here. There it is. All right. So now it's just set into place just like that. And you just take it and you put it right back into place. Now I'm going to pull my filter out. I'm going to do that carefully. Make sure when you pull it out here is you're still going to get some oil dripping off. You can put some rags down. Make sure that you've got it all nice and cleaned up. You have your new filter. It's bidirectional. It can go in either direction. You don't have to worry about it being oriented in a certain way. So I'm going to get a couple of extra rags to lay down here, because the last thing I want to do is drip oil across my motor. I want to get that out cleanly. So I'm going to get that out. I'm going to put the new one in, and then we'll put the new oil filter housing in place. If you've got the plastic one, screw it on hand tight. You can use your socket to screw it in, and then you're going to want to torque it down. And we're going to torque both the oil pan plug and this to the same torque. I'll talk about that in a second. If you've got the CTS one, actually it's different. It's 25 Newton meters. It actually says it right here on the cover, so it's going to be a little bit different than the others. But other than that, this stage is pretty much good to go. So double check your oil, make sure it's all drained out the bottom, replace this, put this into place, put your new filter on, put that, and you're ready to put your oil plug back in. All right, so there's one step I'm going to add if you've got the CTS Turbo baffle cover or oil cover like I do. So what I've done is actually want to make sure that the center baffle stays in place. Now it fits over the fins, but it doesn't click. So if you're expecting it to click or snap into place, it isn't going to. So in this case, it's all in, lined up. So I actually took my oil filter back out and I fit it into place because that will help me make sure that everything stays into place. So I'm going to use both hands and take it and I'm going to hang on to it and slowly guide it into place. That way the baffle will stay in the right place and will stay locked into those fins that are in the top of this. Then I'll screw this into place. That way I feel comfortable that it makes sure that it all stays nicely into place and it's good to go there. So I wanted to make sure to add that little trick in of how I used the oil filter in both hands to fit it down into place to make sure that the baffle didn't slide or move at all. Because what I found is that trying to get my fingers in to hold the baffle was so narrow in that as I slid in and I hit the oil filter, I felt like I got a little bit of gap and maybe the baffle was pulling away from those inner metal fingers that hang on to that center baffle. So I felt like that was the better way of doing it. So this is all done and good to go here. We'll talk about torque. Again, torque on this is going to be different if you have this. It's 25 Newton meters. I always want to say nanometers, so if you hear me say that, I mean Newton meters. So make sure to torque this down properly. This will tighten down quickly. And make sure that you don't over tighten it, right? Because the seal comes from the gasket, not from this thing being cranked down too tight. So 25 Newton meters, and we'll talk about the oil pan bolt as soon as we get back down there. We put it on, and I'll show it. All right, here we are back underneath the car. So just learned something new from my torque wrench. So 25 Newton meters is the same as 18.4 foot-pounds. So because you're supposed to put on your drain plug at 18.4 foot-pounds. So as my torque wrench, as I flipped it from Newton meters, 25 Newton meters to foot-pounds, it automatically said, oh, you want 18.4? So I finally invested and got a good digital torque wrench. So I started doing the conversion tables, trying to figure it out myself. All right, so you can see the oil drain or the oil plug is back in. Make sure that you have your crush ring on when you put it back in. Like I said, and I upgraded a little bit and just have one that's got a magnet in it that hopefully will pick up if there's any metal particles in my oil, which there shouldn't be, but it's always good to be safe. All right, so then you just flip your little cover back over, just like so, like that. Flip the little locking tab around to keep that into place so it doesn't gap down, and you're all done with this part. All right, so here we are at the last and really kind of final crucial stage as far as adding things. Now I'm going to be using 15W40 Liqui Moly. This is their complete synthetic. Choices for oil, there's a million different choices for oil. So do some research depending on which one you like. Mobil 1's great. There's a million different choices out there. So it's a matter of just kind of what you prefer, right? So I'm going to go for the brand new Liqui Moly. These motors take 7 quarts. So this particular big jug is a 5-quart jug. Make sure that the filter, or excuse me, there we go. When you siphon all this in, or make sure that you're really careful and you don't get any debris into your motor or anything of the like. Make sure it gets it nice and clean. So, like I said, I'm going to put in 7 quarts, and then I'm going to check it. And I'll show you how you check it, because if you haven't noticed, these motors do not have a dipstick, of all things, which seems kind of strange, and still seems kind of strange to me. You have to check it through your onboard computer once the car's warmed up. You actually go under the check the status of your car and check oil levels, which has to be done when you're not moving. So, all right. So I've got about almost 5 quarts in. I'm going to add 2 more. Might have mentioned earlier that I was looking at maybe 8 with a new oil cooler, which was the project I was doing at the same time as this. So, well, for now, I'm going to put in 7. And then so I'll walk you through this. Like I said, this is my video just for a standard oil change plus the CTS Turbo billeted aluminum cover, which is super simple. And if you're going to do it at the same time as oil change, I don't see why not. So it really works out kind of perfectly. So, all right, so I'm going to finish up this process. I'm going to add the 2 more quarts. You see me sitting here putting oil in. And I'll show you what it looks like from the inside of the car to check your oil levels. All right, so inside of the car, one of the first things you're going to want to do is reset your oil service light. So you can do that with your little button here by pressing and holding that. And you're going to get the service menu up. You may not have known this was here, but you press and hold, there it is. Now to cycle through these options, you just press the button. So there's front brake pads, engine oil, rear brake pads, brake fluid, and the vehicle check. We're back to front brake pads. So we're going to go to engine oil, press and hold. So it says reset. Press and hold again. I'm holding. You can see it resetting. Bang, reset successful. All right, so nobody in the right mind should go 11,000 miles though. So I'm gonna go about 5,000 miles. And of all things, I actually do like the little stickers that you put up on your window, on your corner of your windshield of all things, because I glance up and see where I am in my service. Okay, so I'm gonna move over and I'm gonna show the check your oil levels in your engine. So let me show that next. Okay, so I've gone to my main menu. I go to vehicle info, vehicle status, and you can see, and when you bring the highlight over, it'll say measure engine oil. So press down on the iDrive controller. Now here's the first thing. So it's only possible at operating temperature when the vehicle is parked and on a level surface. So all really important. If you notice, start measurement is grayed out. So that is something where the engine's not at temperature yet, right? So that's something you're gonna wanna do, and wait till your engine's warm enough. Now, I just fired the car up, so it's running fine. I'm not gonna make you sit here until this goes active, but this is where you'd wanna check it. So look again, see if it's warm enough. Nope, still isn't. All right, so I'm gonna pause until the engine's warm enough to be able to actually show, and then I'll come back. Okay, so here we are. Actually, I brought up the oil temp on my Aeron gauge, so you can see oil is about 203 degrees. Not too surprising. I'm sitting here, just sat idle, and start measurement has finally gone active. So let's go ahead and click up, and it says don't touch your clutch, don't touch your accelerator pedal, anything like that. It's doing its own thing. So as you hear the engine rev a little bit, that's the car doing it itself. 20. Get to see what's on the radio in my right-hand pane. 40. $60. 80, almost done. I figured I'd show you the whole progress on this. Yeah, we're watching a crawl bar, but figured you'd want to see the whole process. 90. Done. So it shows, you can see the green bar on that one side, that's new to that display, sitting right at max. So 7 quarts was exactly right. All right, so all done. Successful oil change and the new oil filter cover. That should help out a little bit, plus looks better and won't crack. All right, back inside, all done. As you can see, it's really not hard. The biggest thing you really got to deal with is how to dispose of the oil properly, right? So you can save yourself some money when you do this. There are good kits you can see online. I'll share in the description below where I got my supplies. Now, the other thing is that there's a million opinions on different types of oil, right? There's just a million opinions on different brands, different weights, all that sort of stuff, and different quality. I believe in definitely using a good quality oil. I've run a lot of brands over the years. I was really dedicated to one brand for a number of years. And in this case, I've tried Liqui Moly as a new thing to do. But check out the certifications and make sure that it works for your car. Don't go cheap on this, right? The other thing is, don't go 10,000 miles. I'm gonna look to change my oil in about another 5,000 miles after this. So you can take these steps at home, save yourself some money, and dispose of the oil properly. If you like what you've seen, please, please, please click subscribe. Click the little alarm bell next to it so you get the notifications when my new videos are coming out, because I have a whole bunch of projects that are still coming. And this oil change is just part of a bigger, other greater project, which is really, really cool. So thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you on my next video.